We're still button mashing.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Are we seriously going to do this again? I want the bass to drop. The bass is supposed to be dropping. It says it's dropping. It's not dropping.
Oh,
why are we doing this? Come on. We're going to do this properly. You guys hold on a second. We're coming.
Yes.
Well, it's going to happen. We promise. You're used to the bass dropping. The bass is going to drop one way or another.
Concerned it.
It's going to drop. I promise.
I feel like the Gabby Hayes character in the Blazing Saddles.
That's Blazing Saddles references. All right, the bass is going to drop. The bass is not going to drop.
Yeah, the old miner character where you just want to sit there and go,
the bass is going to drop. It's going to happen. I don't know why it's not happening. The bass hates me right now. It's going to happen.
All right.
I promise. It's going to drop somewhere.
Happy Monday, everybody.
It's going to drop. I hope at some point.
Ay, Dios mío.
Let's try this way to make it drop. Button mashing everywhere.
Well, let me ask you this.
There it goes. Respect the bass. Ah! I told you the bass would drop. I don't know why it didn't want to drop the main way it always drops, but it was going to drop, and it dropped, and we're here, and it's well past Wednesday, and yeah, good times. We got stuff to talk about. We got a champion of the MLS Is Back tournament. We've got a team going to the CONCACAF Champions League in 2021. John has worked up his best 11 from the MLS Is Back tournament. We will discuss. We've got the Champions League to talk about with a very interesting matchup today. We've got Atlanta United 2 tonight to talk about. If you get a chance to check out Tony Annan's interview, 1v1 that dropped last night on the network, please check that out. Always good to catch up with Tony. It's a well past Wednesday, though, so we're taking your questions on whatever else you want us to talk about today. So you can do that a few different ways. You can tweet at us at SoccerDownHere. You can email us, SoccerDownHere@gmail.com. You can also watch and interact on twitch.tv/SoccerDownHere. I think there's momentum for the chat room to be called the supporter section, I think.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that's confirmed yet, but there's getting a little bit of things happening there, so we'll see. Also the clubhouse, also the locker room, also La Banda. I mean, I don't know what it's going to turn into, but that's kind of where we're at the moment. See, Matt Wagner's yelling about locker room now, so now we're okay, supporter section's not going to work because we have friction in the chat room of things.
Boot room even.
Boot room's been thrown around, but of course you would be backing Boot Room because you are the Euro snob of Soccer Down Here. So of course
I'm the Euro snob of Soccer Down Here.
You are.
Yes,
it's true. Lots of locker room going. I think our friend Badger might get outvoted on this. The group last night was all about supporter section. Now this morning it's all about locker room. I don't know. We'll see. Not the soccer locker. That's a store, and they might get upset. So. All the things. We'll talk about the final from last night. Thanks to everybody who hung out with us for our watch-along over on Twitch. Always fun to hang out and talk soccer and Men in Black movies because that happened.
Yeah.
Portland is really, really well-coached and well-organized, and they have the proper mix of young players coming through, but also wily veterans to win these kinds of events. And I thought it coming into the season, and nothing's changed in my opinion. I think they're an MLS Cup contender. They're that good.
Yeah. When you look at what you need to do to get into a tournament setting and get through a tournament setting, what's the flavor this morning?
Coconut.
Okay. Just, when you look at a coach like Gio Savarese, and we have touted Gio ever since I can remember. When you get into a postseason setting, he hits all the right notes to get you from one match to the next. And we saw that in this tournament. And then also when you're looking at the return, I guess this would be like section 3 of the 2020 MLS season coming up. Once again, you're going to take that experience, you take the mix, you understand what's in front of you, and you've got a coach like Gio. Yeah, I think that definitely they're a contender to win it all in whatever form it ends up being by the end of 2020 season.
Yeah, I mean, they're one of the best teams in the league, period. Savarese is one of the best managers, but this is a team that has a lot of balance. I still have some questions defensively, and that's probably where my biggest questions are. And it showed up on the goal they conceded. It was a poor coverage from Eric Williamson on the late run from Mauricio Pereira. He recognized it late. He didn't get ball side. You can't give up that goal the way he did. But in general, this is a team that's good enough in other phases of play to make up for that. Now, you get into the MLS playoffs, and this was like a playoff, and they found a way through. But I think you're going to need a clean sheet somewhere in the postseason. And this was a tournament that Portland had 0 clean sheets in. Kind of an anomaly there to win a tournament when you have no clean sheets. Defense is usually at a premium. Now, they didn't give up a whole lot of goals. They were giving up pretty much a goal a game. But you gotta throw a shutout here at some point to be elite. The Western Conference, I mean, Portland is right there with everybody else. LAFC, I think, is still your favorite because of what they have in total with Carlos Vela coming back into that team. But they still have defensive questions in a big way. They still have mentality questions. Portland has shown a stronger mentality. I do think Sporting Kansas City is going to be around at the end of the day in the Western Conference as well. They were good in this tournament. They weren't good enough, but they were good. Minnesota was very, very good. They'll be around as well. This tournament, for me, showed us that, the thought that I had coming into the season, that there was not 1 or 2 clear-cut favorites, that there was about 8 to 10 teams that could win MLS Cup. I feel the same. I feel like maybe it's even deeper than we thought it was coming in because Orlando showed they can make a run. Columbus showed their strength. Minnesota and Philadelphia showed their strength. It wasn't the usual suspects deep in this tournament. So that 8 to 10 teams, maybe it's 8 to 12 who can win MLS Cup this year in a year that you're going to have a bunch of teams get into the postseason. It's going to be more of a crapshoot once you get there. And it could be anybody. It could really be about half of the league that could win the league title this year.
I mean, in the East, you're looking at Columbus. We saw in the group stage what they could be. Toronto, Orlando, Philly, Atlanta United with the talent that they have on their roster in the West. You're looking at Sporting, Minnesota, Portland,
You forgot
LAFC.
New York City.
Oh, NYCFC, yeah. Well,
because of the talent they have on their roster. You can't say that about Atlanta and leave NYC off. You can't do that.
True. Then I won't. Sporting, Minnesota United, Portland, LAFC, Zombie Sounders, San Jose, if they catch a run like we saw.
San Jose's not elite. They've got to show more than that. You can't put San Jose in that conversation because you like the way they play. San Jose, what have they done? What have they done to be a contender, a title contender? Because you're putting this in the title contender category. Tell me why San Jose is a title contender.
I'm looking at San Jose just at the bottom of the list. If they can continue to turn things into FIFA 2020 and outscore folks.
You don't win titles that way. They didn't make the playoffs that way last year. They got to the knockout round of this tournament. You don't win titles outscoring folks. You don't. Tell me a team in any league, in any competition, that has won titles with defense that poor. Ever.
See, now you're going to have me think, and that's dead air, and that's bad for
Well, that would mean it's not easy to answer. San Jose's got to show more to be in that conversation. I love watching San Jose. They're probably the team that I will pay the most attention to outside of the East and outside of Atlanta because their games are entertaining. they're not a title contender right now. They've done nothing to be in that conversation.
So we've got 11 teams that we just named that are title contenders heading into Section 3 of the season.
Okay, run through them one more time. Eastern Conference, who you got?
Columbus.
Yeah.
Toronto.
Yep.
Orlando.
Yep.
Philly.
Yep.
Atlanta
Are you
United
ranking these, or are you just calling them out randomly?
Huh?
Are you ranking
them? It's random.
Okay.
Just list.
Okay.
And then Atlanta United and NYCFC.
Okay, so who are you leaving out?
Montreal.
Yep.
Red Bulls.
Yep.
Cincinnati.
Yep.
Revs.
We'll see. I'm okay with them being out for now.
DC.
Yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Nashville, Miami.
Yeah, that's fine. New England's the one who could pop up into that, and somebody will fall out too, because it always happens. I mean, based off the way the tournament went, you could make an argument that New England should be there ahead of Atlanta, and I'm not going to fight you on it. I think both have a lot to prove in the rest of the season.
So in the West, Sporting.
Jason Nix has a question for you real quick. It's very important. Where are you from that you pronounce it Montreal?
Where am I from?
Yeah, why do you call it Montreal?
Because of all of the time that I worked in Canadian television.
There you go. That's what I was asking.
Yeah, I was the U.S. correspondent for one of the networks for 5 years. And so it's Toronto. That second T is silent to me. It's Montreal and stuff like that. So that's where that comes from.
There you go. Western Conference.
Western Conference. Sporting.
Yes.
Minnesota.
Yes.
Portland.
Yes.
LAFC.
Yes.
Zombie Sounders.
Yeah, I think so.
Then I'm leaving out everybody else.
Okay. San Jose, Colorado, Vancouver, RSL, Dallas, Houston, Galaxy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So
that's 12.
Yeah, that's if you're including New England in that's
yeah.
No, I think it's still 11. Anyway, 11 or 12, it's a lot. All right, can't argue with the ones you're leaving out except for New England. They're the ones that I think could pop in there, but they've got stuff to prove. Now, a lot of those teams have stuff to prove. That's the thing, is I don't think any of them are head and shoulders above everybody else. And now you have a transfer window open. As Matt Wagner says, happy secondary transfer window opening day. You've got moves that will happen. You've got teams that will try to improve where they stand. And you've got teams that have holes. I mean, you go through all of them. Columbus, I've mentioned the holding midfield. I worry about them in a slugfest. Toronto, you do have to question Josie Altidore's health. They're not the same team when he's not there. I think they're pretty good in the spine outside of the questions about Josie's health. Maybe you have a few questions outside with them. Orlando, it's just, can they keep this up? They haven't ever shown that they can, so can they? Philadelphia, you've got questions because Mark McKenzie and Brendan Aronson are drawing real interest from Europe, and they're going to need to sell. But when? And can they recover from that if they do right now? I don't know if they can. There will be a drop-off if they do sell one or both. So can they handle that? And can they rebuild for the rest of whatever this season is, and maybe even look ahead towards next season? Not write this season off, but understand that you're going to take a hit if you sell those guys. It's going to be down to the offers they get. Atlanta, I think we know what Atlanta needs to do. Find its identity again. It needs to find an attack. You've got to integrate Dom and Kubo Torres and see what this team can turn into, and you've got to build some cohesion under Stephen Glass. New England, I think a lot of it is just continuing to build upon where they've been, and Gwen's very vocal about New England when it comes up.
I thought she was vocal about Atlanta United.
No, she's a big Bruce Arena fan, so she wants to make sure that we know what's going on with New England, since Bruce Arena doesn't always know.
Does anyone know what's going on here?
Yeah, I don't either, Bruce. Gwen's really upset about it. She wants to make sure that you're on board here. I think defensively, New England's got to get better. Out west, Sporting Kansas City, just cohesion. I mean, I think they have the talent. Minnesota, it's about the same thing. I think it's just bringing that group together, getting Ike Opara back into it. There's talk that they could be bringing in a player or two from South America, which would be really impressive. Portland, not a ton of questions. Defensively would be the main one. LAFC defensively, massively. And Seattle, I have a big question about Nico Ladero. I have a big question about his health. Mm-hmm. I don't know what Gwen is going nuts about.
She's going nuts about Nico Ladero, too?
She's going nuts about everything this morning. She's excited about this season restarting. She's excited about Nashville and Dallas tonight, but she's more excited about Atlanta United 2 tonight.
Yes, 7:30. It's a big matchup in Group H. Tampa Bay is turning this into an early horizon job, 7 points ahead of Charleston, and so Atlanta United 2 can get a result. They can really tighten things up in that battle for the second spot. And remember, the way things are in the USL Championship, 2 teams out of each group make it to the postseason. So right now, Atlanta United and Charleston squaring off for that second spot in Group H. 7:36 kick, but pregame 7:30 on the Plus. So ESPN Plus, you and me hanging out again for another midweek.
Rumors out of Vancouver, Hwang In-beom, midfielder from Korea, could be headed from the Whitecaps to Rubin Kazan. Kazan in Russia. So keep an eye on that one. That would be a huge loss for the Whitecaps.
Yeah, I mean, you think of the limited offense that Vancouver has, and you're usually tying it to what you see from Ali Adnan, Jordi Reyna, and In-beom Hwang. And when you possibly could lose someone like that, that's another, and I'm going to put all this stuff in quotes, another catalyst for your offense. And yes, I just did use air quotes for Vancouver, but that'd be a big loss for Vancouver.
Okay, let's get into a couple things outside of MLS. We'll come back to it. We've got that team of the tournament. I want to hear your selections for the team of the tournament. So tweet them at us at Soccer Down Here. Also, drop them into the Twitch chat, and we will get into that. Other people's dogs are going nuts because Gwen is going nuts. This is
really?
Highly
set
entertaining.
Off other dogs?
It's not even just other dogs here. It's other dogs who are watching the show on Twitch and listening to the show who are now barking. Good job, Gwen. You've got everybody riled up this morning.
That's awesome.
No, it's not awesome. It's ridiculous. And I think maybe she's running out of gas. All right. Couple bits of off-the-field conversation about England that I need your take on.
Sure.
The Telegraph has a report this morning that Derby County is receiving a £30 million cash injection from an American billionaire, Michael Dell.
Okay.
It is money borrowed against the club's assets from a New York investment bank belonging to Michael Dell, who's an American billionaire. And then with Swansea, and the Colonel had asked me to dig into this a little bit more, and you're going to have to make me understand this because I'm a little confused about Swansea's investment. So
I was too when I saw this. I was too. Go ahead and lay it out.
So Swansea, first off, they're in the last year of their parachute payments. So it'll be like £15 million.
Yep.
They got to bring in cash. Everybody does right now, but they're definitely in that boat. They're looking at potentially selling players, but there haven't been any offers that have hit the table yet.
Right.
They brought in Jake Silverstein, and reports where he made a significant investment in Swansea City. But it's pretty much being described as a loan everywhere, but he's got a seat on the board, so they think it's going to be converted to shares. Why didn't he just buy part of the club? Exactly.
Yeah.
That sounds really shady and weird.
Yes, it does. And the trust, and full disclosure, I'm a member of said trust, and so El Mataflo and the Colonel can chime in on this if they want. The trust owns 21%. It's like 21 and a fraction. 21% of the team, and it has always been a part of the fabric of the franchise. The trust, from what I can remember, is still kind of hacked off that they weren't really kept in the loop about the whole thing.
Well, no, hold on. That part's separate. I'm not saying the trust doesn't matter, but that's not the issue here at this point. The trust is upset because they weren't kept in the loop. Well, they own 21% of the team. They should have been kept in the loop. What's the deal?
I know.
I don't care about the trust part of it right now. I'm trying to figure this out. If he's offering a loan to the team, he's offering a loan to the team. How's he got a seat on the board? If he's buying up to 5% of the team, he's buying 5% of the team. Why is it a loan?
Right. That to me is the question in all of this. It's like, if you were going to buy it, just buy it, instead of I'm going to give you a loan, which gives me a seat on the board and it'll entitle me to something like. I mean, unless Jason Levian and the 25 or 30 or however the heck many other partners.
Well, Jason Levian and Steve Kaplan are the ones who are, yes. So Kaplan and Levian, and don't throw shade at Mindy Kaling. Just Kaplan and Levian, go.
Fine. Kaplan and Levian lead the group that has 68% of the team. And the largest issue traditionally has been a lack of investment by Kaplan and Levian et al. Into bringing in players, and you have a team that is just kind of hanging out mid-table. Once again, this past season, great run. You've got into the 6th seed on the last day.
Yeah, they did hang out mid-table this season.
Yeah. So the desire by the fans has been, okay, we could make a push to go back into the Premier League if there was more investment. We could bring in more players. We could win more matches, that kind of a thing. The whole mechanics that you're bringing to the fore about the loan, which really should just go ahead and be purchasing a section of it's very confusing. I don't know why it's structured like this or worded like this, and all it does is have me have more questions than I would answers about his involvement, Silverstein's involvement in the first place.
It makes no sense, and it sounds incredibly shady. And you are part of the trust who owns 21% of the team, and you have no idea what's going on with this.
Zero.
That part's not good. The part that the exact value of the investment's not clear, according to reports.
Nope.
Kaplan and Levian took a 68% stake in 2016. The club was valued at £100 million at that point. I've also got a question based off some of what you said. So Swansea fans, and you've said this many times, you get frustrated because there's no investment from the ownership.
Mm-hmm.
What level do you think Swansea's at? Because finishing 6th in the championship and being a back and forth club, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that higher than where they've been historically? I mean, I know they've been in the Premiership for a short period of time, but their historic level is 2nd division, 3rd division?
Well, I mean, you go all the way back to the day where Leon Britton saved them, and this is like 12, 15 years ago. Leon Britton saved them from going into the National League on the last day of the season, kept them in League Two, and that kept them afloat in the pyramid, the main tier of the pyramid of English football.
When was that?
From there, and that's
roughly.
Like I said, it's about a dozen years ago, 15 years ago. So,
okay, so they almost were expelled from the league
because they were awful.
12 to 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's complaints about investment to take them back to the Premier League?
Yeah. And I think...
Can we get some realism here, please? That's insane. That's insane. That's insane to be complaining when the club nearly died. Like, not even 20 years ago. You've got to solidify. And the fact that these kinds of deals are coming up, a loan / purchase / maybe 5% / seat on the board / the 21% owners of the team don't know what this is. I mean, Captain Ragamuffin has a pretty good shout here in the Twitch chat. That's like a Shark Tank kind of deal. That doesn't make any sense.
No.
And then the flip side is this should be a Premiership club? At whose expense? Villa? West Ham? Who are they jumping? They've got to solidify who they are right now. It's not about Kaplan and Levy and they need to invest more. Obviously, they don't have it.
No, they don't.
So how can they invest more? Like, it's not there. So I don't think it was there before this either. I think the expectations are out of whack. Of course you want to be a Premiership club, and they're a club maybe more in the Norwich kind of level, but Norwich knows who they are. They're not getting caught with these. I don't know. I hope Norwich doesn't have to take a deal like this, because this feels like a deal that's a desperate team financially.
Yeah.
And when you're going to lose £25 million of revenue because your parachute payments are down to your last one this year, and you've already lost a bunch of revenue from tickets sold and match day revenue, to the point that you're talking about selling Andre Ayew, who scored 18 goals for you last year. Colonel, no, okay, 7 years. I'm not being fair. They were there longer. But are they a Premiership club based off structure? I don't know if you can say that if you're down to this point in this kind of deal. Longer in the Premiership than any other level? Any other level in what period of time?
Oh, is Colonel going back and forth?
Yeah, no. I'm asking you. You're on the trust. Like, they longer than any other level in the last 20 years or last 15 years. Probably the last 15 years would make sense.
Yeah,
but are they a Premiership club with Premiership resources? I'm assuming not.
No.
Were they punching above their weight when they stayed up?
Yes.
Potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. And Colonel, no, I mean, Colonel's invested in this emotionally. I get that. But does this deal scare you, Colonel? Because it would me.
Mm-hmm.
Because it makes me feel like they're in real trouble of not just getting back into the playoff to go up next year, but of keeping the doors open. If you're talking about selling, I mean, I think the rumor that I read was AU, there's a €5 million deal potentially from PSG.
Yeah.
You're going to be selling your leading scorer for $5 million?
Mm-hmm.
And you're bringing on an investor that's a loan /purchase /seat on the board / nobody knows what it is? It just worries me.
Mm-hmm.
I know in the last few years they've been there, but I just don't know if they have the resources to be there again and be there for a long time. Not with this ownership group. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. And again, it's not a club that I follow the day in and day out of every day. But I don't know if they can count on being there. And if these are the kinds of conversations and deals that are happening, oof, it's worrisome.
Yeah. I have been traditionally worried, if that's a phrase, over the last couple of years. It just seems like Levian and their group are just looking at Swansea as a line on a balance sheet and focusing more on their DC United interests than they are.
They are? Have you looked at DC's roster as of late?
I know.
I think that's a joke.
I've just viewed their purchases as Swansea being a line on a balance sheet, and it's like, hey, look at our portfolio. We've got a team in English football. So, but yeah, this has concerned me from day one, and this whole stuff that has gone on recently, I have completely scratched my head over. It's like, look, if it's up to 5%, just why don't you buy the 5%? If you're that hard up and you just want the loan, just have it as a separate thing. Don't, if you need a loan, you can get a loan from a bank. Why are you getting a loan from a guy who owns other clubs and giving this guy a seat on the board for a loan? To me, you're that hard up right now. That's my impression. And
they wouldn't be the only ones. I mean, that's a fact. They wouldn't be the only ones. I mean, just mentioned Derby County trying to find money. And just trying to figure out where this is. I mean, if Swansea was valued at £100 million when Kaplan and Levian took a 68% stake, I'm assuming they put £68 million into the conversation or thereabouts. I don't know if they're worth more now. Yeah. If that was in 2016, say they're the same, then you're talking about, for a 5% stake, you're talking about £5 million.
Well, yeah. So you're talking what, $7.5 million, a $7.5 to $8 million loan, depending on the exchange rate.
I'm intrigued. Pacine says in the Twitch chat, I don't think this pandemic's going to have the sweeping changes to club finances we thought it might. The financial speculation will come right back without the needed reform/limits. Kind of depressing. Yeah, it's an interesting one. You're going to get more of this, I think, which is kind of scary. It feels like, you're I mean, it almost feels like your mob loans that you're getting where somebody's going to break your kneecaps.
Yeah, what's your interest rate on this from Silver?
Yeah.
What's your interest rate on this? What's your rate of return?
Some kind of ownership?
What's your timetable to turn it back?
I don't know. The Colonel says the loan to be repaid with equity is pretty much a sale. Cash to repay bank doesn't exist, and Swansea is working like dogs to get out of debt, not incur more. And that's where I keep coming back to. You tell me before they were sold.
Yeah.
Or not completely sold, but before Kaplan and Levian took 68%, where were they financially in 2016?
And Colonel can help me out.
Were they in a bad spot, or were they in a good spot, and it looked like Kaplan and Levian were coming in to invest and take them further?
I thought it was the latter. That was my own personal opinion.
Okay. Okay. And that's what I don't know. I was curious. These moves are going to be interesting because we're hearing about a lot of loans. Even go back to Manchester United, and they upped basically to get everything up to their credit limit that they could get, all the money they could get on hand to do things. Now, they're also talking about spending crazy money for Jadon Sancho, so that's part of it. But everybody's trying to find money to operate, even Tottenham. I think they were one of the only clubs to be able to qualify for this government project that got them a loan for operating costs, not to go out and get talent, but for operating costs. Everybody is going to be doing that. And Pacine, I'm really curious to see if maybe we don't get as much of the immediate financial issues that we worried about because of this, but maybe they're just delayed because of these loans and these situations that are kind of weird.
But aren't you kicking the financial can down the road?
Well, no, you absolutely are, but you're keeping the doors open. I mean, that's the flip side is, do you want to go out of business now, or do you want to try to find a way to save it? I mean, that's it. And you might be having people who are going to help you save it for a while, and they're either going to take ownership of these clubs or they're going to default on it, and then they're going to go out of business later on. It's going to be interesting to see. This one just feels very, very strange to me.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is, a loan for now to get cash in the door to be able to try to operate, because it sounds like it, and Colonel's saying that as well in the Twitch chat, that this is kind of a bounce back right now because he said the former chairman, they were flush until the former chairman made a series of bad purchases after the sale.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to balance the pandemic and trying to balance recovery and debts that you already have, if this is the deal you have to make for basically I don't know if it's a down payment, I don't know if it's a loan that could turn into a purchase, and maybe that's what it is it's $5 million, $7 million up front, and the club will have the option of either converting that to shares or paying it back. I don't know. I'm trying to find some kind of logic in this. Maybe that's it. But it's an interesting one, and if they sell Ayew, I just don't know if they can count on being in a promotion spot next year.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you're going to replace him with somebody comparable.
No. You lose Sigurdsson and Llorente, and those were two of your biggest guns. $25 million in profit at that point, and this is 2017. But then you turn $16 million on Tom Carroll, Jordan Ayew, Martin Olsen, Luciano Narsing, and that was supposed to keep you afloat in the Premier League. And those four signings did not do that. And the way that you burn through managers, and we talked about Bob Bradley last week, that as a part of that whole process, yeah, you burn through managers, you have a poor transfer grouping, and that money that you had on hand that was supposed to help you out and get you players to keep you afloat in the Premier League, and it didn't happen.
Well, I mean, these things are why MLS is looking at private equity kind of sales and investment to try to sell pieces of clubs. We've heard about a couple of these where shares or a part of the ownership are sold. Turner said you're trying to kick the can down the road long enough to start to get close to full capacity and get your main revenue source back, which is a great call because, yeah, that's the reality right now is you've lost revenue. You got to go replace it with something. And then hopefully your timing works out to where you can start to repay it. Pacine says even embedded owners can loan cash to their own clubs, and that's absolutely true. He says it stays on the books and has to be repaid, not just given. Mike Ashley's a big fan of that one. Totally true. The Colonel comes back on Swansea and says, don't underestimate the strength of the Swansea youth teams. It's kept them afloat since relegation. I agree. I think it'll keep them afloat, but I don't know if it propels them. And John, final on Swansea, the way you said it was even this year they were above their level getting to sixth.
Well, yeah, I mean, they had to have luck happen the last day of the regular season. I think it was 3 teams above them all had to lose. Swansea wins, puts up a big number, gets in on goal difference. I mean, it was absolutely bananas that last day of the championship. And they went from, I want to say, 10th to 6th and got in on goal difference as number 6.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the last day and not so much. I'm talking about basically where they were. So
yeah.
6th, 7th, whatever.
But what I'm saying is they were basically mid-table, got really lucky, and ended up getting into the playoffs. So they were like a 10th place team, basically, in the championship.
Okay. Okay. Are they that going into next year?
Yeah, I would say so.
Even if you sell Andre Ayew?
Well, what are you going to get in return?
Money. That's the thing. But this is it, John. This is the problem. You're going to get money. Money doesn't score goals.
Mm-mm.
You're not getting money that you can necessarily go spend. Now, if and I don't know Swansea's youth development setup well enough to tell you, if there's a kid ready to step in and can score 18 goals for you, you're in a great spot. Mm-hmm. Is that realistic? Probably not. So can they flip whatever they get here, if it's $5-7 million in the loan / purchase / option to buy / whatever, and then they get 5-6 whatever for Ayew? Can they flip that into a player and operating money? Who knows? And we'll have to wait and see. It's going to be wild in the European window. And this is a good question, and this is one I'd love to hear people's thoughts on. We got about 20 minutes before Mike Conti joins us at 10 o'clock. Christopher Abel, going back off what Colonel said about the strength of Swansea's youth development, Chris asked, I wonder how English second division teams compare to MLS sides in terms of youth development. That's a good one. I think in general they're comparable in terms of the number of teams that are focused on developing youth. Because for every Swansea, you have teams in the championship who aren't doing anything in terms of bringing kids through. Just like in MLS, for every Dallas and Philadelphia, you have some that just aren't doing anything in youth. You have Minnesota, who is trying to figure out, like, are they even going to keep things open to whatever minimum they have to do? And that's okay. Clubs have different ways of building rosters. It doesn't all have to be the same way. I'm fine with that. But in terms of the level that's being developed, that's the part that's hard to tell. The U.S. has to, in my opinion, become more willing to give minutes to young players. That's something that's more accepted in the English second division, or they're being loaned out to play in the third or fourth division or overseas to play. Here, for a long time, and it's starting to change, it's been, they're a talented 16-year-old player. Well, let's move them up to the U19s. Or, they're too young to play pro. Now, we're seeing this in Atlanta, and it's something that Tony Annan talked about on the 1v1. You got Caleb Wiley, who's 15 years old, who is playing every minute right now. And if you didn't know he was 15, one, he doesn't look like he's 15, except a little bit in the face. Mm-hmm. But if you looked at the field and you didn't know who he was, I don't think you'd pick out the 15-year-old.
Nope.
He doesn't play like a 15-year-old. He's as a player, you use the term classy a lot for a guy who doesn't make a lot of mistakes, great composure. I've never used that about a 15-year-old, and Wiley's that guy, and he's getting that time. We've seen Bello get time at a very young age, both with USL and with MLS. We're seeing, teams sometimes, a starting 11 with an average age of under 20 years old with Atlanta United too. That's a step in the right direction. You need to get those players ready to start becoming first-team players as teenagers as well, and I think that's the next step for MLS to really close the gap in terms of youth development.
Yeah, no, if you were to try to pick out a 15-year-old on that pitch for Atlanta United too, not knowing ages, who do you think would be picked out as the 15-year-old more than not? Coleman Gannon?
Just because of his size, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 16, so you're not off. It's not like you're missing that by much. That's not a bad guess.
But yeah, for me, it's Coleman Gannon. But Caleb Wiley. I've loved what I've seen from Caleb Wiley. I've loved what I've seen from a lot of the guys this season for Atlanta United too. And I like where I like this future, and I want to see the continued development. I've just really been enthusiastic about what we've been watching this year in the early returns in Group H.
But I mean, all that's great. The question is back to the comparison between development in MLS and the English Second Division. I feel like MLS is heading in the right direction. I'm really curious to see what this academy structure will end up being this year. It's going to be a mess because, I mean, you can't do anything normal in terms of travel. And Tony mentioned in the 1v1 that they've got some things coming up that they're trying to, make the best game program that they can. And that's a term that you're going to start to hear more and more. You have the training program, you have the development program. Character is a massive part of Atlanta United's academy as well. But you have to have a proper games program. And USL's part of that. So, a player like Wiley, he's shown that he's a USL player. He's at that level. He can play at that level. No problem at all. Other guys kind of go back and forth. They get the opportunity to play with USL. Maybe it doesn't look great. Maybe they don't fit in with the group. They go back down. You're looking to see how they react to that. That's what you see overseas more, and that's what's very new here. From a youth development structure in the United States, before professional teams really got involved in it, kids didn't deal with disappointment very much like that. Because the best kids were the ones that could be shopped from club to club to club, and offered whatever reduced fees, offered whatever discounts. They didn't have to work as hard in training because they were the ones who would win you trophies. Trophies don't develop players. So now in these situations where in a professional academy, you've got players who sometimes hit a wall in terms of their development. They're not a professional, or they're not a professional right now. And how do they respond to that? You see guys, and we've seen it with the twos over the years, where you see them for a couple of games, then they go back and they play in the academy. Sometimes we don't see them again. Sometimes they go on to college. Sometimes they leave the academy. They go to another club to try to find another deal. But you do see sometimes where somebody plays, goes back down to the academy. Maybe they struggled a little bit. We don't see the training every day, so maybe the training wasn't where the coaches wanted it to be. They go back to the academy. You don't see them for a little while. Then you see them come back, and they look like a different player. Yeah. That's the kind of thing you're looking for here. So lots of stuff on the development side. I think it's getting better. I think the clubs in Europe and the English Second Division, you pick whichever one you want, they have a big head start in terms of time, but they also have a head start in terms of the mentality of developing players from a professional sense. And that's something that the U.S. is only really starting to understand and learn, and I think parents and kids are starting to understand in a way that they never have before. So give it a little bit of time. I do think this MLS new academy setup is going to help because it's geared towards development of players. It's all about developing players, even the clubs that are on the outside of the MLS structure, the clubs who have been invited to join. They've been invited to join because of that commitment to developing players. It's not just about winning trophies and competition and being in an organized structure. It's about developing players, and that's going to take things to another level. All right, Lots of different stuff. We're going to go kind of round robin with things before we get into Mike Conti joining us. What do you have on Twitter?
What do I have on Twitter? I have Drew Gano this morning. He says,
What up, Drew?
Sure hope Glassy's been working on defending balls into the middle from the outside. Have a bad feeling that this will be Orlando's best chance at their first W against us. Hashtag Ball Pass Wednesday.
Well, Orlando's good. I mean, yeah, it's absolutely their best chance at a win against Atlanta. It's not so much about Atlanta. It's about Orlando being much better. I'd like to hear more from Drew on exactly what he's talking about. When you look back at the MLS Is Back tournament, I think a lot of people ripped the defense. I didn't rip it for that reason that Drew did. My issues with the defense were where they switched off at times and dropped off at times. The 3 goals they conceded, which is only 3, one with 10 men. That one, there's fatigue that factors into that goal, but you dropped off. You allowed Frankie Amaya to find a pocket of space between your midfield and your center backs. He had time to turn and shoot. You can't do that. The goal against Columbus, too easy for them to work the ball from side to side. That should not have happened. That was a poor performance all the way around, and that was the epitome of it. The goal against Red Bulls was different because it was in transition early. It wasn't so much the kind of ball that Drew's talking about. It was where, you had lost the ball in the right attacking corner and didn't recover quickly enough, and then conceded a goal where your defense was completely out of position. So I think you need to build the continuity, the consistency, the chemistry more than anything with Meza, Robinson, and Escobar, who hadn't played together before this tournament. I think those 3 will be fine on the types of balls that Drew's talking about, but you can't drop off in the defensive half. And too often, it was in the playoffs last year too. I mean, go back and look at the goals you gave up against Toronto. Dropped off. You've got to step up and challenge more, and there's just got to be that trust factor between the back line and the midfield that at times hasn't been there.
Nathan Pugh's in with a couple of thoughts this morning. We'll go with the local one first. He says, I believe you also have to convince kids that dabble in academies to stick with the footy. You need to be able to attract those highly athletic kids and impress upon them that footy is a good track for professionalism, success, and dollars.
Well, there's a couple of things. The ones who are in academies, when I'm talking academies, I'm not talking about your local youth club. I'm talking about Atlanta United. I mean, in Atlanta, it's Atlanta United. They're the ones that I'm talking about here. Ones that have a pathway to pro. That's the academy for me. The ones who are there are not dabbling. The ones, now, if you're talking a step below that, I don't know if those are the ones who would go pro. The part that Nathan's talking about that is very important is something that I've noticed that has started to change over the last decade, even longer. It started with the money that was talked about when David Beckham came to MLS. When there was a lot of money talked about, and I remember working for soccer in the streets and being in neighborhoods that had no soccer culture, no soccer history, and people being blown away by a soccer player making that much money. And then you start to talk about worldwide, and now people know what Messi makes and know what Ronaldo makes, and now people understand that worldwide soccer players get paid very, very well, and in MLS, players can get paid very, very well. Players can get paid very, very well here in Atlanta. That is continuing to take hold, but that doesn't affect the 16-year-old who's talented, who's at the academy level, who might decide to go play another sport. That affects the 11, 12-year-old, and maybe more importantly, that affects the family in terms of what they might be pushing the kid to do and to play. And that's where it's starting to change. So I don't have a problem with kids playing multiple sports. I think it's a good thing at younger ages. I think it's a very good thing. But once you get middle school age, and maybe it's closer to 7th, 8th grade age, you do have to start to have some specialization. And you also have to have the proper kind of training to continue to develop the mentality and the ability. That's something Tony mentioned in the 1v1 that stuck with me a little bit. The mentality is one of the things that he is starting to see change with the kids who have been in the academy for a long period of time. You have to remember the young signings early on and the first wave of the older academy kids in the Atlanta United Academy, they came from that environment that I talked about where they were coddled in a lot of ways because they were the superstars at these clubs. And those clubs weren't there to develop pros, so they're not trying to make it hard to and develop the character of the player to be a professional. A lot of times it's trying to develop a kid to be a really good player who can go to college. It's a very different mentality. So now in Atlanta United's academy, you've got guys, and Tony used the phrase earn it. That's something that they really talk about a lot with the Atlanta United Academy. You've got to earn your time. You've got to earn your promotion. You've got to earn what you get. And in the previous youth club setup, that wasn't always the case. So now you have a different mentality, and that's only going to continue to grow. So it's a process. It takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. But in Atlanta, in the 4 years I think we've seen of Atlanta United having an academy, we've seen progress, and that's a good thing. And it's not just at Atlanta United. It is trickling down to the other clubs. But there's still progress. There's still room to grow.
One other local thought comes from Taka this morning. He says, big news with the 4th Station soccer site selected. I love that outreach. Is there already a league in place that's being played? If not, how many are they wanting to complete before opening up as an interconnected league? I guess my question is, tell me all you know.
The league side, you've got to open up more to do an interconnected league, but they have a league program that's at the West End location. The issue is, downtown, the 5 Points one, there's not a lot of kids who live right there. So that's more of like a showcase one. Lindbergh, I'm very curious to see because it is a little bit different demographic there. But this is something I learned at Soccer in the Streets that I honestly didn't know until I started digging into some of these neighborhoods. Yeah, you hear Lindbergh and you know where that's at in Metro Atlanta, and you're like, there's not going to be kids, at-risk kids with low income who live right there. There absolutely is. There you get these little pockets in neighborhoods where, yeah, there's kids who can't afford to go play club. And if they get the opportunity to play here first, that can trigger things for them down the road. So you've got Lindbergh, you've got West End, you've got East Point. You've got 3 that really have or can. Lindbergh's got to have some time to develop, and East Point just opened. You've got to grow the league there a little bit. Like the way I always kind of saw it going was you develop a club at the Station Soccer Project, and once you have teams there that go past just competing against one another, then you can start to travel around. So give it a little bit of time on that part, but you can still do everything you want to do before you get to that part. There's others planned. They've got a large build-out planned. Of course, it's taken a hit right now. Everything is, funding-wise, so things have slowed down a little bit. I'm glad they're able to get this one this far along now. I don't know what the time frame is for the next one, and I'm assuming it's probably changed a little bit. So there's still work to do to get to where you have a true interconnected league, but it's coming.
All right, 2 other thoughts before we hand it off to hour number 2. Do you want the domestic thought or the international thought?
International thought.
International thought comes from Gamey Muffin, his own self, Nathan Pugh. Over under 5 goals scored in Champions League today with a question mark.
With Atalanta and PSG?
Mm-hmm.
5 is really high bar. I will go... I'm going to go under, but I think it's going to be 4 or 5. Under or a push. 5 is such a high bar. 4 cards yelling over.
Yeah. So right now your number, and it's kind of shifted a little bit, once again, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal in the aggregate. Atalanta to win, 254, plus 254. PSG was basically even money at plus 100. That shifted a little bit in the aggregate. It's now plus 104, and your tied after 90 minutes is plus 279.
I like that Atalanta number. I think they find a way to win it. There's some figuring out of what PSG's lineup looks like. They have been hoping that Mbappe could play a role. It was based on how he felt after training yesterday, and I have not seen an update just yet. So maybe off the bench. 4 cards going 4-3 final. It can go either way. Madness. Madness. All right, one more.
The other domestic thought comes from Bartimus Prime this morning. He says, was that the most Portland that Portland ever Portlanded?
It's pretty close. It's very Portland. I mean, that's what they do. That's the thing about Portland is they can look very bland, nondescript, because they're going to be organized. They're going to be well coached. They do what they need to do. And you've got guys in Blanco who I wondered if you wanted him to do as much defensive work as he did last night. He was fine. Valeri was fine with his legs. So you've got guys like that who will do the dirty work. And I think that's what makes Portland dangerous is you've got incredibly talented players who can break your back with a moment of brilliance, but they can also break your back with a tackle, and they're not afraid to do that. A lot of times you see, the attacking flair players, you have to protect them defensively. Portland's guys, they like to scrap. Blanco will get in your face, even if you're the other team's manager. He doesn't care. Valeri will do the same thing. So they've got an attitude to them, as well as incredible quality, as well as a commitment to just doing whatever it takes to win. And that can be a very dangerous proposition if you're playing them. But that was a very Portland kind of win, yes.
We're officially caught up on the Twitters, sir. Actually, Kefsey, real quick, says, live on Twitch TV/soccer down here, the 6s and 17s are holding down the Twitch pitch. Get you caught up checking in with Mike Conti. So I guess Kefsey's now calling it the Twitch pitch?
Yeah, that's making some rounds. We'll see. Like I said, something new comes up every day. Nothing is getting a consensus as of yet. We'll finish real fast with Burned on Twitch. More optimistic about the development of U.S. players after having seen the difference in quality between the first batch of Atlanta homegrowns who came through the pay-to-play system and the current crop who came through Atlanta United. I still think it's a shame you lose, and in quotes, so many good ones to college, though. I wish there were a solution for that. And he says make college soccer better. I mean, the solution would just be to be able to sign more and have, roster room or sign them and loan them out, things like that. The college game is what I'm kind of sad to say maybe was, because the college football cancellations yesterday, and if more come, it's going to be very damaging to college soccer. Because college soccer doesn't make money on its own. It does rely on football money to survive. You're going to have programs not come back, I'm afraid. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm afraid with the type of hits that they're talking about, and I don't see spring football being a thing at all. So I don't see it. You look at a year of losses, I think some schools are going to drop soccer programs. And that's on the men and the women's side. So maybe as it comes back, because people will add it back as money comes back in. There'll be a push to add it back. As that happens, maybe you'll see it looked at a little bit differently, and maybe you'll see a little more focus put on development rather than playing 2 and 3 games a week, which is not good for the student-athlete component of it, and it's not good for the player development side of it. But I've got a pretty big fear that college soccer is going to take a hit at the D1 level anyway. I think D2, D3 will be okay. D1, it might not look the same on the other side of this. All right. Fingers crossed that we have a little bit of backing music for John for his award-winning advertisement. I don't know what award it won, but we're going to see what happens. For our good friend Steve Apolinski in Decatur, GA. Hit it, John.
Apolinski and Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here in the SDH network. Wrongful death and serious injury attorneys, 30 years of experience, more than that. $40 million in judgments for their clients, more than that. Wrongful death and serious injury attorneys recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend Magazine. Top 100 firms in the state of Georgia. If this is something that you need to have discussed, a couple different ways that you can reach out to Apolinski and Associates. The website, aa-legal.com, and when you hit the enter button on your keyboard or on your phone or whatever device you want to use, a pop-up window will pop up because that's what they call them. They pop up. So it's a pop-up window. You can have an instant conversation, 24/7, 365 or 366 in a year like this, which seems more like 466 at this point, but you can have a live chat. aa-legal.com. You can also shoot Steve an email directly, steve at aa-legal.com, or get a free consultation by giving them a buzz at 404-377-9191. Appalinsky and Associates, proud supporters of everything soccer down here in the SDH network. The website, aa-legal.com.
All right, fingers crossed that this works and we don't lose anybody and we get Mike Conti on the other side of this little thing that's happening right now. Yes, we lost John for a second. He's still trying to freak us out with his fingers in front of the camera.
Crossed.
Okay. What's up, Mike?
What's going on, guys?
Yay! The fake producer gets the job done. How are you today?
I'm good. Did I do something wrong?
No, you're good.
No.
We just always
it's technology, Mike.
Yeah, we just always cross our fingers that things are going to happen and John doesn't disappear or John doesn't turn into a robot when we add somebody to the line.
It's amazing how, I don't know how many months into this we are, but for the most part, our technology infrastructure has not really collapsed yet, which I guess is a good thing. I mean, if Zoom or, GoToMeeting or WebEx suddenly went away, I think we'd probably have a real problem.
Yeah.
So, fortunately for us, all our gear is continuing to work.
This is very true. What'd you think about that final last night? People are calling you out for your pick of Orlando.
Yeah, I stand by my pick. I mean, I just thought they were kind of a team of destiny. Portland, I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. I didn't watch a whole lot of it last night.
There's been a few things going on.
I can't really go too in depth, but good on Portland. Fair play to them. I thought Orlando kind of had a little bit of. I hate to use this word because it could get twisted, but I just thought they had some magic on their side. 47 days in the bubble, first team or second team in, even though they could have waited a lot later. They got a little bit of luck in the fact that they went through on penalties over LAFC. I have this gut feeling that it was just going to kind of fall into place for them. I think, if you look at it on paper, you could certainly understand why Portland won last night. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it, probably because I didn't watch much of it. Portland's a deserving winner. They played great. They took this thing very seriously as well. I think probably what happened last night is you had a veteran team that's played together a long time. They've played in big matches before against a team that was playing in its biggest match ever. And sometimes that experience can be just that little bit of extra that puts you over the top.
Yeah, it looked at. I think Portland also had more depth, and that was something that we kind of dug into on the watch along last night. When Orlando needed some fresh legs, needed somebody off the bench to give them a boost, it just wasn't there.
Well, it's interesting. I've been working on Orlando a little bit because I've been trying to, get things together for next week. And now that we know the three teams in Atlanta's pod, I've done a lot of work on Miami and Nashville, and I started to dig in on Orlando a little bit yesterday. And that depth thing, that is a real. I think that's going to be an issue for Orlando, to be totally honest with you. And it's weird. So Daryl DK was a super draft pick this year, didn't play a whole lot, did get in last night, I guess. Schlegel didn't play last night. He hasn't played a whole lot. Kamal Miller isn't playing much for them, it looks like. I guess Rubinho didn't play again last night for them. I mean, he played quite a bit for them down the stretch last year. He hasn't played much this year. So it kind of looks like Oscar Pereira's got his first choice group. And I don't know if he's reluctant to expand that group or not. I don't know if there's a trust issue. I don't know if that back of their roster, I think it might just be as simple as the back half of their roster is just really, really, really young. Sure. and inexperienced. And it might just come down to that. And then you start to wonder, okay, is Orlando perhaps in danger of falling into a trap that LAFC fell into last year, where their first choice was really, really solid, but as far as needing to push a button off that bench, it can be really, really tough. I don't know. I don't think they're missing Dom Dwyer. I don't think it's that. I think it's just, outside of Nani and Pereira and Mueller, who had a great tournament, there is kind of a drop-off there. And if you're not getting the production from Mueller and Pereira and Nani, and I'm looking at the box score here from last night, it looks like all three of them played pretty well. And Pereira, I guess, scored. But that might be kind of what dictates where this team goes. But again, like I kind of cringed a little bit this morning on Twitter when I was seeing some Atlanta fans, joking about the Orlando trophy case and Orlando's tears and everything like that. And yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of funny, but I don't think any of us as Atlanta fans have any room to throw shade at Orlando for losing last night. Orlando had a way, way better showing in this tournament than Atlanta, indisputably.
No, very, very true. Orlando fans would throw shade at Atlanta for losing in the playoffs, so this is kind of
okay.
Return,
but that's ridiculous too.
Exactly,
so
it's ridiculous.
I mean, I guess if we're in a race to be ridiculous, then it's okay. I think a real tip of the cap to Orlando. I'm very concerned about having to play these guys 2 weeks from Saturday.
100%.
I really, really am. We will see. Another, potential thing that could help Atlanta United, which is something we talked about last Friday, is Orlando's expended a lot of energy emotionally in this tournament. They might be a little bit wobbly coming out of it. But that's where I would have liked to have seen Orlando maybe a week from Saturday at the Benz, as opposed to 2 weeks from Saturday, where they'll have had a chance to play Miami and then Nashville and maybe get their sea legs under them a little bit.
I don't know, but that's where that depth comes in. You're playing.
It does.
You're going to catch them on the third game, and I mean, how much can they really rotate? Because you mentioned Pareja and Trust. I'm completely with you. I think he's still getting to know this group. I mean, he has to be. He's only been there for a few games now. But when you do that, you're getting your starting group first, and you're getting your day in, day out group that you're building that relationship with, and then you're starting to add to it. He hasn't been able to really add to it, and when you look at the quality of what he has to add to it, Orlando brought in. I heard some people saying this on the national side yesterday, and I was a little surprised by it. They said that Pareja took basically the same team that wasn't any good last year and has made them better, and I disagree completely.
I don't agree with that at all.
Pereira came in like mid-season. He's a great addition. Antonio Carlos, very good addition on the back line. They've added pieces to accentuate what they have, and he's also coached up some guys as well. But the problem is you had to do so much to get that group ready to go. You don't have the depth across the board. The depth chart is weak. And this tournament, it's going to have an emotional effect on them because that's a disappointing loss last night. It was very close. They fall off. You could see it on their face. How quick do they bounce back from that? And then when Atlanta sees them, they will have played 2 games in a week with less depth than Atlanta. That could come back to add up for them. It's tough. I want to see how they do in this quick run of games, 6 in 3 weeks. That's tough for a team with minimal depth.
Yeah,
it is. And, honestly, I think we're going to learn a little bit more about Nashville tonight, but Orlando probably should feel pretty good about their chances to get results in their first 2 matches before playing Atlanta. I think Miami's better than their record shows. Miami's probably a little bit deeper than I think people realize. That's something that really, really stood out to me working on them in the last couple of days is, wow, Miami's actually pretty deep. But I don't know. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. I'm with you guys. I think they're going to have some questions asked of them over the next couple weeks, but I like the way they played in this tournament. They were a fun team to watch in this tournament. I could even make the argument they were the most fun team to watch in this tournament. I know that might get me killed among some of your listeners. I thought the Loons were fun to watch too. I mean, it wasn't just Orlando, but Orlando played like a team that deserved to make the final of that tournament. By the way, you know what else I think is kind of interesting? This reminds me a lot of Campione's Cup last year, where everyone kind of snickered and joked a little bit about, it's a trophy with not much history, and it might just end up kind of being a friendly that the fans are going to end up liking. And it turned out that there was a real feel to that match, and it was a trophy that actually now really does kind of carry some meaning because of how well played that match was. It felt like there were some similar overtones going into last night where people were downplaying, oh, okay, yeah, I guess they kind of made up a trophy for all this, and who cares? And, you get a Champions League spot, but what else? $1 million. And there was a real feel of a final going into that match last night. So just goes to show you, once you roll the ball out, those competitive juices really take over, and all jokes kind of come to an end. If Orlando would have won that trophy last night, I would have counted it as a legitimate trophy in their 100%. Case. I count this as a legitimate trophy in Portland's case. It is a legitimate trophy. The tournament may never played again. God willing, it won't need to be played again. But, if it is or if it isn't, this counts. This is a trophy for Portland, and it puts them in Champions League. And it gives Orlando kind of a roadmap of what they need to do now to get into Champions League themselves.
When you look at, and this is, I guess, Mike, the 30,000-foot question now that the tournament is behind us. When you look at the tournament itself, and this could be an on-the-field answer, it could be an off-the-field answer, it could be about the television presentation, all of the bells and whistles and the efforts to put on this tournament. What are some of your other takeaways about what we saw when it came to MLS Is Back and getting Major League Soccer back out there for folks to see and for the players to have as a part of the sports landscape here in the country?
No one got sick in the last 32 days. That's the biggest takeaway from all of this. Is MLS proved that this could be done safely, and they did it safely. In the middle of a state that's having some problems right now. And, there have been a lot of people saying, I told you so over the last 24 hours about college football. And I don't like people who say I told you so. But I think the three of us, felt very, very confident that if the protocols were adhered to, it would work. And now we have proof. And MLS did this despite tremendous media pressure for them to stop it or to not go forward with it. They went ahead and did it anyway, and it worked. That's real validation for the commissioner, as far as I'm concerned. Now, did they get everything they wanted out of this tournament? I mean, they had unprecedented national TV exposure, even if the numbers weren't good. And it sounds like they weren't exactly what the league was hoping for. We'll see what happened last night. I don't anticipate, by the way, the number was pretty good. It was all that good last night because ESPN didn't do much to promote it. I think as a broadcast partner, I mean, the league basically moved into your facility in Florida to give you content. And ESPN did not really, in my opinion, hold up their end of the bargain from a promotional standpoint.
Correct.
That's not the league's fault, by the way. That is not the league's fault. The numbers might turn out from last night to not be very good, but it doesn't change the fact that you had an unprecedented level of national television exposure. And even if people who weren't necessarily counted by Nielsen or whoever's doing audience measurement, even if those people weren't necessarily counted, but they were still watching, if you made one new fan out of this project, then it was worth it. And I think one is to assume that MLS made more than a few new fans as a result of this. So that's a success, too. Again, it's like we talked about last week. I hope we're never in a position again where we're going to have closed-door tournaments to get a season in. But you never know. And if we have to now, the blueprint is established for how you go and do it. But I think it's a real credit to the league. I think it's a tremendous credit to the players, the staff, the referees, the broadcaster, everyone who spent 50-plus days down in that bubble away from their family to put this tournament on. And I'm glad to see that those people are starting to get the recognition that they deserve. And especially the players. I mean, Jason and I have talked about it. I'm really grateful, even though Atlanta United played poorly in this tournament, I'm grateful that they took it seriously enough to go down there and play because it gave us work. I really, really do appreciate that. And I hopefully one day I'll get a chance to express that to them in person because they made a tremendous personal sacrifice to go down there. So, you know, again, I kind of cringed this morning. Like I saw the Athletic again, kind of, you know, threw some backhanded compliments and some shade at this tournament again. I don't know what more the league and its teams and its players have to do to get that validation.
I mean, how many rounds of tests came up with zeros consecutive? 14?
Well, but John, it was still a bizarre tournament with many setbacks, and you know, I don't even want to quote the article. I think the two national people from the Athletic who've been writing about the league have been grossly negative. You know, bringing up important questions, but then when those questions were answered, kind of doubling down on it. This league is what it is. Okay, this league is what it is. If you don't like what you see, I don't know what to tell you. No one, again, it was a safely operated tournament. The incidents with Dallas and Nashville were very unfortunate, but they were not incidents caused by anything that happened in the bubble.
No.
Flat out. I think that's proven. I mean, I don't think we know 100% exactly how it happened, but I think we do know with certainty that it didn't happen in Florida. So I don't know. I get really frustrated when I see that. I just get really, really frustrated when I see that. I don't, and maybe it's just a very vocal, a loudly vocal minority that is writing and expressing these things. Because I did see a lot of positive things too last night from other national soccer people. But it is okay to admit when you're wrong. It is okay. I'm wrong all the time. I mean, we could probably run back the tape of every appearance I've had on this program of yours, guys, and we could probably pick out something that turned out to be wrong. If you're wrong, own it. I don't know. It really makes me shake my head sometimes, but it doesn't change the way I feel about how this tournament unfolded, how it went, how it was presented. It was, in my opinion, a win for the league. You know, and I think if you were to ask the players, they would probably echo those sentiments too. You know, there were some players and some coaches that expressed some reservations and some concerns about, you know, going into the bubble and how things would be there. But for every one of those players, I think you could find a Tommy Thompson who was very, very outspoken that this was working. Merritt Paulson, the owner of the Portland Timbers, very outspoken proponent of the tournament. I think he was inside the bubble. I think even the few Atlanta people that we've talked to who were inside the bubble had generally positive things to say about it. So, I don't know.
Yeah, it's been weird. It's still weird at times. I've seen some comments that, it's like, just let it go. The tournament happened. Yeah. It was a success. You can just move on. And don't, in moving on, just try to pick something new to start slamming. There are questions about the way it's going to go in markets. I think this is a tentative step towards, you know, whatever a normal season could look like. It's regional. It's day-of-game travel. It's all the things that are in place to limit exposure as best as possible. And it's that intermediary step from the bubble to what we're about to see with Atlanta United in a group with Nashville and Miami and Orlando and all of those in terms of charter flights. And you could bust to Nashville if you want to. Charter flights, to Miami? It's an hour, just over an hour?
About, hour 30.
Hour 30. You know, it's about an hour to Orlando, Nashville. What is it to Nashville? I've never flown to Nashville. always driven.
About 50 minutes. About 45 or 50 minutes. They're going to bust that, though.
Okay.
I'm almost positive they're busting that.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me because that's 4.5. So,
well, do you know, guys? There's actually a busing protocol.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, for any of this, there's protocol. Absolutely.
They have to pull over every 2 hours to air out the bus.
Okay. Yep.
So I mean, but there again, like that's the level of detail.
Yep.
That's the level of detail that they're going through to try to ensure that this is going to be done as safely as possible.
This is the next step, and yes, it's riskier than the bubble. I'm completely comfortable saying that at this point because you're in home markets, you're not in a bubble scenario. There will be travel, although it's very controlled. But it's not what Major League Baseball stepped into, going from nothing to not complete nationwide travel, but a lot of travel. So,
well,
go ahead.
Yeah, I just don't think it's fair to compare what Major League Soccer is doing to Major League Baseball.
I agree.
Because, again, Major League Baseball, where the problems have occurred is you have teams on the road for 5, 6, 7, 8 straight days at a time. Okay? When you're on the road that long, the temptation is going to be there for human beings to want to go to casinos.
Self-discipline.
Or go purchase milk.
Go purchase milk, of course.
Go purchase milk. Yeah.
So that's tough. That's also 8 days in a hotel. It's 8 days transferring between the hotel and the aircraft and the stadium and all of that. You do have to find a way to eat. As far as I understand, Major League Baseball is not supplying 3 meals a day to its players when they're on the road. They're being urged to stay in the hotel and eat in the hotel, but you got to find a way to eat. Like there's so many and then, God forbid, you have the Cardinals or you have the Marlins and the virus rips through a team. Because you're playing every night consecutively, the cancellations are going to pile up really, really quickly. In the NFL and in Major League Soccer, and in my opinion, college football, it's a much, much different situation. And let's take Atlanta United, for example. I think their first road game is 2 weeks from today at Miami, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think? Okay,
yeah,
so
you're right. Yeah.
What that means is, and I haven't talked to Manny. I mean, I don't know exactly how they're doing this, but I'm going to make a guess. You know, they're playing at 7 o'clock at, I think the stadium's in like Fort Lauderdale, Boca Raton, something like that. Okay. So, you meet at the training ground at 9 or 10 in the morning. You do film or whatever. You have a meal. You bust down to the charter terminal. You're probably wheels up by 3 o'clock. You land at Fort Lauderdale at 4:30. You go straight from the airport at Fort Lauderdale to the stadium. You're at the stadium at 5:30. What time does the team usually arrive before kickoff? 2 hours before? Maybe you move this back a little bit. I might be off by an hour. But this is how you do it. You go straight from your training ground into your bus that you've cleaned and sanitized, into your Delta charter, which, by the way, I think there's some pretty clear statistical evidence right now that with the way the air is changed inside a commercial airplane, that the risk of getting exposed on an aircraft is extremely remote. So you know that's safe. You go right from the aircraft to your clean and sanitized bus. You don't go through the terminal. You go right into your clean and sanitized bus. You go from that bus right into your clean and sanitized dressing room at the stadium. You play, back to the dressing room, back to the bus, back to the plane, home. You're back in Marietta by 2 in the morning. Yeah. You have not exited a controlled environment at any point during that timeline, right? Okay, no one's getting off the bus to go to 7-Eleven.
Nobody's going to get milk.
Or no one
looking for milk.
No one's leaving the dressing room because they forgot their headphones and they need to go to Best Buy and get headphones for their MP3 player or something like that.
I'll tell
Probably
you what.
Aging myself when I say MP3 player. So that's my point. you can be in a much more controlled environment if you aren't introducing an overnight stay or hotel, which is what they're going to do in MLS and for the most part in the NFL. The other thing, too, God forbid, let's say there is another Nashville or Dallas situation where a team gets wiped out with an outbreak. You're not going to cancel. How many games have the Cardinals canceled now? Like 10 or 11? This is not going to result in losing 10 or 11 games. Sure. It might result in losing 1, 2, or 3 because you're not playing every night. So I know that this is one of the points that the opponents of this MLS plan are pointing to. Like, wow, look at the Marlins, look at the Cardinals. It'll never work. It's not the same. In my opinion, it is not the same. You're going to have an outbreak, okay? It would be extremely optimistic to think that you're going to be able to play the rest of the season out with 0 positives anywhere in the league. I think that is far-fetched.
Yeah.
But what you're trying to do is prevent team-to-team transmission, which, by the way, has successfully occurred in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Even with 2 teams having outbreaks.
That's the thing that I think I've heard way too many experts talk about this with college football and talk about this with sports in general, about that team-to-team transmission. When, please, people who are listening, please, in the Twitch chat, if I'm wrong, point it out, because if it's happened, it's been like once or twice. I don't think it has happened where you have had team-to-team transmission in any sporting contest since this started. The issues are within the team. The issues are when you have somebody do what a police act from the Cleveland Indians did and go out and leave and then potentially bring the virus back in and other people cover for him and say, oh, yeah, I was with him. So, I mean, you can't do that stuff because then if they get infected and come back in, it's going to spread before the game when you're hanging out in the locker room. It's going to spread when you're not following protocols, when you're eating together. Those kinds of things are where the spread is happening. It's not happening in competition. The numbers back it up. And this is why I'm still blown away that nobody has commissioned a study of this in American football, because you got them in basketball, you got them in soccer. Baseball is kind of an obvious one here because of the way the sport's played. You don't have that close contact that the CDC talks about. That is what massively increases your risk. Where you have that is off the field, within your team. You don't have it in the competition. American football, I'd love to see the study because of the line of scrimmage. You don't have that kind of scenario in soccer and in basketball. You're able to do these things, and if you're protecting your team, the other team's going to be okay because of the low risk of transmission in competition. It's just, I think that gets pointed to so often, and there's nothing to back that up. There's just nothing to back it up.
And the other thing, too, Jason, is we'll take American football as an example. If Georgia's playing Tennessee and you have 60 minutes of hand-to-hand combat between well, it wouldn't be 60 minutes, but 20, 30 minutes of hand-to-hand combat between the Georgia left guard and the Tennessee defensive tackle.
Yeah.
If the Tennessee defensive tackle is COVID negative and the Georgia left guard is COVID negative, it doesn't matter how much contact they have,
also
correct?
True. Right.
Yeah.
And I think we have discovered now, and I don't think a lot of people have paid attention to this aspect of what's happened in MLS either. The number of false positives in the bubble went down dramatically as the tournament continued. Now, you're also testing fewer people, so I don't know if it's a linear drop or what, but there were far fewer false positives as the tournament went on in Orlando. And I have to wonder if whoever was administering the test may have discovered a flaw in the testing process that was resolved down there. Because remember, you had an Atlanta player with a false positive. Mm-hmm. You had a couple Red Bulls players with a false positive. You postponed a match because of false positives, because Toronto didn't want to play DC. By the way, this is another thing that's going to be very, very important too, in my opinion. When you get back in the home market starting tonight, the protocols have got to be adhered to across the board without deviation. And whatever the protocol is for continuing with a match after a positive test, now I don't know how it's spelled out in this new document that's been distributed to the teams, but however it's spelled out is what you have to do. It's not like you get to take a vote or anything like that. If the protocol says you have a positive, you isolate, you move on, you have to go ahead and go forward. These protocols have been crafted by healthcare professionals, public health officials, for a reason. I think the tournament in Orlando got a little bit off the rails because, to start, you had teams that were making their own decisions on when to enter the bubble outside of what the protocols and the rules told them to do because they were getting skittish about positive tests. And as it turned out, that's probably what cost Nashville its involvement in this tournament, because they got into the bubble too late and they didn't have enough time to quarantine and have it flush out before they could play. So, across the board, these protocols have got to be respected and adhered to because they were drafted for a reason. These are not arbitrary rules. They were put together very, very carefully. I would hate to see a situation like we had on, I forget, I think it was July 13th, where you have one team showing up and another team refusing to get on the bus because they're worried about a rumor of a positive on the other team. We can't have that again. That could be tremendously disruptive to everything that the league is trying to do. And it could turn out to be an unnecessary disruption.
Yeah, and I mean the bottom line is, Mike, is that it comes down to the personal responsibility of that athlete within the context of the team, and understanding what the actions of one can mean to the impact of the whole. And
100%. But I think we also have to remember too, John, I mean, you are going to have situations where, like, I'm sure Emerson Hyndman was doing everything in his personal control to minimize his risk of exposure, and he still got it. Things are going to happen, right? Especially because teams are not being sequestered. So, I'm trying to go into this as realistic as possible that, we're going to see some people get infected, and we might have a team suffer an outbreak, and that's going to be very, very unfortunate. But all you can do is try to minimize the risk of that happening, and if it does happen, minimize or eliminate the risk that it could spread. And I think that's where the NFL is going to be, and a college football conference that's going to play on. That's where they have to be. I think that's just where we are right now in our world.
But again, I think go ahead and finish, because I want to touch on that.
We have plenty of evidence where that can be done safely.
The part on the spread is the key. You can't control what's outside of your environment, whether you're in a bubble or not. You can't control that. You can't control the players are going to be at home, family members are going to come and go from the house. Things can happen, absolutely. The part you can control is following the protocols to eliminate or reduce the spread. And it's how you train, it's how you eat together, it's how you travel. All those things are so vital, and where we've seen breakdowns, and this needs to be either pointed out more or studied more. I think where you've seen it with the Marlins, where you've seen it with the Cardinals, where you saw it with Dallas, where you saw it with Nashville, protocols, it couldn't have been followed properly, because we're seeing other situations where a team has a positive, has two positives, it doesn't spread because people are wearing masks, people are not sitting together as they put their boots on, people are not standing around in large groups, at training, just talking without masks on. People are not eating right next to one another. Like, you're doing all of those other things that are annoying and you wish you didn't have to do, and you wonder why people are sitting on the bench with a mask on. Well, these are the reasons why. It gives you that extra protection to prevent an outbreak if something happens.
Yeah, I interviewed Ron Corson last Friday. And for those of you who don't know who he is, he's Georgia's assistant AD in charge of sports medicine. He's basically the head athletic trainer at UGA. And he had a great point about, he's talking about how football players, when they're not in the game, they're going to have to wear a mask on the bench, and the sidelines are going to be extended to the 15 in both directions so players can spread out.
Good.
Why are
that
you
was
doing
one
this?
I wondered about. That's really good.
Yeah, and why are you doing this? And I don't know if you've heard the Swiss cheese analogy or not, but it's what he used, where think of it as a layer of Swiss cheese, where you put one slice of Swiss cheese down, and that's going to hopefully prevent someone coughing on someone else. Then you put another piece of Swiss cheese down in another direction. You've covered up some of the holes now, and that piece of Swiss cheese is you standing 6 feet apart on the sideline. And then you put another piece of Swiss cheese down, and it's not high-fiving or spitting on your hands. And by the time all the layers of Swiss cheese are down, you've gone from a bunch of little holes to maybe one or two. And the holes still exist, but it looks a lot more solid than it did with just one slice or no slice at all. That's kind of where you're at in sports right now.
Yeah, it's critical. And those protocols are going to be critical for MLS. I think the hope and what I'm hoping for is that people have learned from the negatives at the beginning of the MLS Is Back tournament, but far more from the positives and how important it is for all these protocols. So you have a league that comes back into doing what they're about to do, which isn't the same as Major League Baseball, but closer to that than what they were doing. But you have the players with an additional knowledge base of what it takes to do this properly. And I think that will help them in the long run. And we're about to find out. I mean, you've got a game tonight, Nashville and Dallas, and things are back underway.
I really think, again, and I know I'm way over your time. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
Final point. I just really think with the day of game travel and that scenario I described where when Atlanta goes to Miami, they go from the training facility to a bus they control, to a plane, to a bus they control, to a dressing room they control, onto the pitch, and then in reverse to go back home. No overnight hotel. No one's leaving the bubble that you've created for yourself since getting to the training ground. No deviation from that. No one's running out to get a cheesesteak. You're going to be traveling within self-created bubbles and not introducing an overnight stay. So as far as I'm concerned, as long as you're doing what you need to do in your home market in the lead up to matches, by the time you get to the match, the hay's in the barn and you should be okay.
What kind of a match are you expecting tonight, Mike, with Dallas and Nashville?
Great question. These two teams haven't played in almost 5 months.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, that's accurate.
I mean, how rusty are both of these teams going to be? They haven't played in 5 months. I mean, they've had time to train, no doubt about it. But just even mentally, what has that training been like? As you fight through all the turbulence of what you've had to deal with, I have no idea what to expect out of these teams tonight. None whatsoever. I'm going to be watching because I need to start really watching Nashville. I'm going to go back and forth between you guys and that. I was going to say
on one screen, you're watching Dallas and Nashville.
I just guys. I have no idea.
Yeah.
No, I can't really think of anything like this either. Where in any sport where you've gone 5 months without playing, not even a preseason or an exhibition or a friendly or anything. I think it's going to look rough. I think it's going to be a sloppy match. There could be some really weird things that happen. I have no idea. Very anxious to see Nashville tonight because Nashville, in the 2 games they played before the stoppage, I thought were really very impressive. Played courageously at Portland, played probably well enough to get a result against Atlanta. So we'll see. I think Nashville, like Miami, is a better team than their record shows.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, a couple things on Twitch to clean up before you go, Mike. Which do you prefer for the title of the game tonight? The Timeout Trophy or the Pent-Up Aggression Bowl?
Yeah. I don't know. The Frito Pie Derby, I guess. But they don't really do Frito Pie. Well, no, wait a minute. Do they have Petros in Nashville?
Oh, I don't know.
We've talked about Petros before, haven't
we?
The East Tennessee Frito Pie chain. I wonder if they get all the way out to Nashville or not.
That I don't know.
Because they sell Frito pie in that stadium in Frisco. I know that for sure. You know, I don't know if any broadcasters are on site there, by the way. God help them if they are. That's not a fun stadium in which to work. But anyhow, a pent-up aggression derby, I guess. I'll go with that. Good question.
And now you've gotten everybody, the Swiss cheese analogy's got everybody excited about what their lunch options are going to be. And it looks like you have sold cheesesteak via DoorDash for quite a few folks.
Okay. I'm looking up Petros right now.
You and me both, brother.
I was about to say, do you have a cheesesteak recommendation in the Atlanta area?
Do not eat them. That's my recommendation.
I always like to bring that one
Plus.
up because you get very worked up about it.
I don't like cheesesteak. I know that sounds completely sacrilegious for someone who's from Philadelphia. I don't like cheesesteaks at all. I think they're garbage food. So my advice would be to not eat them. And by the way, it looks like there are no Petros east or west of Johnson City. So I'm guessing not in Nashville.
Okay, wait a minute.
Petros is down to just a very small handful of locations now.
Yeah, but I've got breaking news for you. Chris Ashley, who listens to the show religiously, says the owner of Petros is actually a friend of mine.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So, do you know what the story of Petros is? I'm sure Chris Ashley knows. Can I go into a brief story time with you?
Please.
Yeah.
So, the 1982 World's Fair was in Knoxville, and it was a salute to energy, which is why they built that sun sphere.
Yeah.
Right. And the official snack of that World's Fair was the Petro, short for petroleum. And it was basically the Frito pie that I've described. Well, it was so popular that I guess Chris's friend, or a descendant of Chris's friend, decided to franchise some Frito pie restaurants. And it's still a thing in eastern Tennessee, and apparently now a thing in some Love's truck stops, according to their website, in Arkansas and Texas. So there you go. But that's how the Petro was created. It was actually one of the official snack foods of the 1982 World's Fair.
Good stuff. So we've covered the MLS Is Back tournament. We've covered the game tonight. We talked a little bit about the twos, and we've talked about lunch options.
There we go.
That's
now I'm hungry, too.
Yeah, seriously. That's pretty good. Stoppage time, 2 o'clock, right?
Yeah, 2 o'clock. I'll try to be a little more focused for that than I was on this one.
Whatever.
We'll talk more dinner options for that one, I guess.
I guess, yeah. Sorry, guys. I was off the rails today. I just had a lot of things on my mind.
No, off the rails is good.
About, Mike. Don't worry about it.
Have you heard the show before?
Good.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, of course. Come on, guys.
Thanks, Mike. Talk to you in a little bit.
All right, see you at 2.
You're good.
All right. Lots of stuff. Let's get caught up on some of the news quickly before we wrap up with Twitter and such. Bild had a report. Now, we talked about Mario Götze and Cincinnati. Bild had a report that he turned down an offer from Inter Miami. I don't know if Miami's just the new LA Galaxy in terms of any player who is linked to Major League Soccer gets linked to Miami. It's very, very possible. I had not seen that anywhere else. So I'm somewhat giving Bild the side eye out of Germany. Bernd, you might have an update on that one. The Cincinnati deal got a ton of attention. I don't know how close it is to actually being done. We'll have to keep an eye on that one. Update on FIFA and World Cup qualifiers, and this was pretty big news this morning and something that I do think will happen in more regions. The qualifying matches in Asia for the 2022 World Cup have been postponed to next year. They were supposed to start in October and November. They're not starting in October and November. You keep pushing it back, you're going to run out of dates to get qualification done. So that was released in a statement this morning by FIFA and the Asian Football Confederation. Keep an eye on that because CONMEBOL and South America, I think, could run into the same issues. CONCACAF could easily run into the same issues here with those early round games starting up in October. I don't know. One of the reasons why you're running into these situations is what you're running into in Champions League qualifying. You have the smaller countries having qualification rounds to get into the Champions League proper. That has started for the next competition. And you had KF Drita, who is the club from Kosovo, who was supposed to play against Linfield from Northern Ireland. That game was canceled. Drita had a second player test positive. Swiss health authorities and UEFA put the entire squad into quarantine ahead of the match that was scheduled yesterday. Not happening. This is going to happen more and more. So this makes these kinds of qualification rounds difficult. That's why the Champions League and Europa League are doing it in one location. This makes World Cup qualification difficult a little bit later. We'll just have to keep an eye on all of it, and it's going to have to be adjusted. There was an appeal. I think we've talked about it a little bit. Macclesfield Town and their appeal, it was denied. They have been relegated to the fourth tier, from the fourth tier to the National League. So they are out. A further 4 points was deducted from the club. That put them into the relegation spot. They were given in June a 2-point penalty and a $26,000 fine by an independent disciplinary commission after being charged with misconduct over the non-payment of wages. Correct me if I'm wrong, that was pre-pandemic is when the mispayment or the non-payment happened. I don't think it was after the pandemic.
I think it was 3 separate occasions dating back to the turn of the year.
There's issues with payment during the pandemic, obviously, in a few cases, but this one was before that, so there's no excuse. They're gone. Stevenage moves up to 23rd, and they stay in League Two. We've got some updates on signings. Tottenham made a pretty good one. What do you think about Tottenham's addition from Southampton?
With Højbjerg, I
Yes.
love it. I think it'll help things out in the midfield, and I saw that, and I'm like, ooh, nicely done. And I think that I think there was a player heading the other way, if I'm not mistaken, as a part of the deal. But I like this addition for Spurs. And Katie Weaver, we need Katie Weaver's input on this.
Yes, I do like the addition, too. I think he's the kind of player who will really suit them. He was stripped of the captaincy at Southampton after he turned down an offer to extend his deal. He's got 1 year left on his deal. He didn't want to renew, so they get the deal. They move it on. Looks like around £15 million is what the reports are saying. Feels about right.
Good deal of business.
Yeah, Kyle Walker-Peters is going the other way in a separate deal. Today, UEFA Champions League, Atalanta and PSG. According to some French reports, Mbappe's not in the starting lineup. There were questions on if he trained well, and Thomas Tuchel left this open for discussion. Said he could feature in it. He still could. He could come off the bench. 30 goals in 34 matches in all competitions this season. You saw the nasty ankle injury in the French Cup final win over Saint-Etienne. And he's not 100% fit. There's no way. That was a ridiculously bad ankle injury. But he did travel. He did train yesterday. And he's not going to start according to the French reports. That's not definite yet at this point. On the flip side, Atalanta, you look at them compared to PSG. And if PSG was at full strength, you'd really have some problems picking Atalanta here. Because the cost of Neymar's transfer to PSG is more than double the amount spent on the entire Atalanta squad. Their record signing, Luis Muriel, cost less than a tenth of Neymar's price. But Atalanta is here, and they are a fun team to watch, and I think they also have a lot to play for, representing their region of Italy that has been one of the hardest hit during this. So I can't wait to see this game. I think it's going to be a really fun one. I think Atalanta can win it because of no Mbappe to start, no Angel Di Maria, no Marco Verratti. Atalanta can take advantage of that. They are playing really, really well.
And if you have a subscription to the New York Times, Rory Smith has an article up. Saw a little bit of it, and then it went behind the paywall. I'm subscribed to the Washington Post, not the New York Times. So Rory's got an article up about Atalanta and what it means to Bergamo, and Nick is all fired up about Atalanta as well, as he should be.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. One more before we get into Twitter and Twitch. keep an eye potentially on Luka Modric making a move, although he's saying all the right things right now. There'd been some really weird rumors about him going to DC United at one point. AS in Spain, he is obviously getting paid very well, and you have Odegaard, who is coming and has been out on loan, but all the reports are now that Zinedine Zidane thinks he's ready and thinks it's the right time. Real Madrid long-term sees Odegaard as the replacement for Luka Modric. And Modric struggled early this season, but a lot of the reports in Spain were that he was one of Madrid's best players after the restart. The talk now is that he wants to continue. He doesn't want to be an issue for Madrid. He knows that his time is short. He knows that Odegaard is coming. He wants to reduce his salary to help the club financially, but he does want to stay. It'd be great for Real Madrid if he stays and he embraces that and helps kind of groom Odegaard to take his spot full-time next year. That'd be the best way to do this. Sometimes money can get in the way of that. Right now it sounded like it's not. But keep an eye if somebody comes in with an offer that is hard to turn down for Luka Modric. And, I mean, it'd be based off what he did in the post-stoppage time in La Liga, where he was very, very good.
A couple things on Twitter before we head your way. El Mataflo is in this morning, and he's as we were getting into the COVID-19 precautions of MLS in our discussion with Mike, he says, me explaining MLS COVID-19 precautions to my wife who's at risk. 3 nerd face emojis. My wife to me, you're such a geek. I love it.
It's crazy how this has become such a big part of the sports conversation, but it has to be. And I've really been blown away by some of the conversation around college football because you can tell they haven't been paying attention to this. You can tell that there hasn't been that conversation with, what protocols can look like. I mean, the SEC didn't want to test initially coming in. They were very reluctant to have dedicated protocols. Some schools have had them, some schools haven't. There's no consistency. It's been absolute bonkers. We got a little bit of this. This is more for the smaller. Relax over there. This is more for the smaller teams in CONCACAF, but the preliminary draw will take place August 19th in Zurich. The 35 member associations will earn their qualification pathway to World Cup 2022. We know that the top 5 in the FIFA rankings will be in that final round of 8. Everybody else will have the playoff rounds if they can get them done. So keep an eye on that one as to who ends up where. Canada will be anxious to see who they get drawn with. I think they have the talent to go through. Canada should be a team that's in that final round, but they got to get it done. And one win over the U.S. and Canada doesn't establish Canada yet because they looked, as good as they looked in the home game, they looked equally bad in the away leg in that, and surprisingly bad. They looked like they hadn't been in that situation before, which they hadn't. So they need a good draw. They should get through. They have the talent to get through. They need a good draw. If they get a tough draw, it could get really weird.
Based on the rankings as of July 16th, the draw allocates the 30 lowest-ranked CONCACAF teams to 6 groups, and it's followed by the draw for the final round, which will indicate, according to FIFA, the position of each team within the final qualification stage, which will also be contested in a group format. There are 5 pots. Then the nations are listed in the 5 pots. 6 highest-ranked teams in the first round: El Salvador, Canada, Curacao, Panama, Haiti, and Trinidad and Tobago preceded into groups A through F, respectively. Single round-robin format. Each team will play 4 matches, 2 home and 2 away.
It'll also be very important to see which games you get at home and which games you get away, because it's not a true double round-robin where you're playing everybody home, everybody away. If you draw the 2 toughest opponents you have in your group at home and you draw the easiest ones away, well, then you're in great shape. If it's the other way around, it could be a tougher road. So lots of conversation in Twitch about college football, and I didn't get to finish that. I've been blown away by experts, by presidents, by commissioners, whatever, talking like they haven't been paying attention to this global pandemic that's been going on since March. That's obvious from some of the different protocols they've had, some of the lack of protocols. It's just been a mess, and that's part of why. There's lots of reasons why, but that's part of why they're in the situation they are. They don't understand what they're dealing with. The NFL's worried me a little bit, the fact that they didn't have a plan in place by the time it was there for players to report. They had to go back and forth with the players to get a deal approved about the safety protocols. That's ridiculous. I mean, things are changing rapidly, and we know this, and you're going to have to adjust them. But to not have a plan in place at this point, you're not doing your job. MLS has had to create a plan, adjust a plan, redo a plan. Now they've got another plan based off the original plan. You've got to have a plan to deal with this. Just like basically all of us have to have a plan to deal with this. If you're going to have people interacting without social distancing, because, yes, hello sports, you're going to have a plan. And when some of the responses from the experts and people in leadership positions of these entities is, well, you can't socially distance and play sports. Duh. How are people playing sports? Because they are. How? Explain that to us. That's the point, is football hasn't had that plan in college football, and you're in the point where you are now, and I hope they figure it out because there's a lot riding on it. Shared a story yesterday from Sportico that the largest advertising revenue event that Fox has in sports was 2 Big Ten football games. I think the championship and it's probably Michigan Ohio State. Well, those don't happen now. What is Fox as a network going to do in terms of their sports department? You've lost your two biggest, let alone your probably 10 of your 15 biggest, period. They're gone. You've got some serious issues. ESPN has some serious issues because they expected a lot of advertising money from these games. That's going to have trickle-down effects. These are all very difficult things, and it's where the sports industry is. I mean, if you work in these athletic departments and you don't have football this fall, what is the job security right now? There's so many elements. It's so difficult. There's so much stuff here. So we will see how all of this goes. We'll keep you posted. It's just bizarre to me as somebody who loves to talk sports and tactics and acquisitions and what the strategy looks like. And I do enjoy the sports business side of it because it's what allows you to grow. To have to cover this side of it and the medical side and the health side and the safety side, it's a challenge. But it's part of the conversation right now because it affects everything. It affects the competition. It affects the business. It affects the future. And you have to be able to deal with it appropriately.
Yep. Caught up on Twitter. The last thing was that FIFA World Cup news out of CONCACAF. What's going on in the supporters section?
Lots of conversation about college football, about the NBA, about those issues and how people deal with them. Just how all of this is going to change going forward. So far, we've seen the bubble work in 2 situations that have completed, the NWSL and MLS. We are seeing it work in the WNBA and the NBA. The NBA is about to, according to Turner, they're about to allow people into the bubble for guests and kids after they've been tested, after you do all the entry-level stuff that all the players had to do and all the staff had to do, which is okay. But they've got to pass those tests to come in. And it's the same thing in terms of anybody who came into the bubble at the beginning. If they don't pass, they're going to be put into a quarantine situation, an isolation situation, and there you go. Yeah. So I'm interested to see how that works because that's taking it a step further. Just like MLS is about to do, it takes it a step further. That one doesn't concern me as much because it's still you're coming into a controlled environment, and you got to get the pass to come into the controlled environment. They're not loosening the restrictions on coming in. You still have to come in and pass the test to come in. The MLS side, you're out of the controlled environment, but you're creating as controlled of an environment as you can outside of it. and it's down to that personal responsibility to make it work. I'm very hopeful that Dallas and Nashville have learned from what they went through. They're playing tonight. I'm very hopeful that everybody has learned from this event. And I think MLS is in a better place having done the tournament than if they had not played at all. I really think they are in a better place going forward on that. Transfer window's open. You're going to see trades. You're going to see rumors. You're going to see acquisitions. You're going to see moves. We will keep you posted on anything else that comes out on the Atlanta United front in that. I think they probably have done their business, although the Jonathan Gonzalez rumor is still lingering. It's been pretty quiet as of late, to be honest. You'd have to move somebody to make room for that, so we see if it gets done or not, or if it was agent posturing. There was also reports that Celta Vigo in Spain was in for him, and we'll see if that is maybe the more accurate situation. Who knows? We'll see moves around the league, too. So lots of things to continue to follow up on, lots of things to continue to move forward with. It's going to be very, very, very interesting in the MLS front with the window open, with games and markets, and with some interesting games coming up. I mean, Dallas-Nashville, I could see it being scoreless today. I could see it being 4-4 today. It's going to be weird. There will be mistakes, absolutely. Tonight, Jason Nix says he's looking forward to some action at the Fraction tonight. That is happening. 7:30 is the broadcast time. 7:36-ish is the kickoff time. Tampa Bay Rowdies against Atlanta United 2. The Rowdies are the best team in the group, one of the best teams in the league. They have not lost this season. Very veteran-laden team against a very young Atlanta United 2 team. As Tony Annan told us on the 1v1, Jackson Conway still having some foot issues. He might not be able to start tonight. He might not be able to play tonight. Mackie Jope should be ready to go. Lots of what we've seen from Atlanta United, too. I don't think it'll look dramatically different. I still think it was a really good performance in Birmingham. But that's the thing for a young team. You have those little moments where you have a slip, and you can get punished for that. That's what Tampa Bay can do to you. Go ahead.
Yeah. 6 matches tonight in USL Championship. Charlotte hosting Birmingham, Red Bulls 2 hosting Loudoun United, Atlanta United 2, and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay right now minus 185 if you're interested in juice boxes, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal. Atlanta United 2 at plus 386. Your draw option is plus 304. Out west,
Feels
FC Tulsa hosting San Antonio, San Diego Loyal hosting Orange County SC, Reno hosting Sacramento Republic.
Champions League, 3 o'clock. Tuesday night. ESPN Plus has got Dallas and Nashville as well. Plenty of soccer for you to jump into today. We will be back tomorrow morning to break all of it down, 9 o'clock on the app on soccerdownhere.net and in the Twitch pitch. Maybe, possibly, that might stick. I don't know.
On the Twitch pitch?
We'll find out. Just keep workshopping it. You're good at these things. Keep doing it. We'll figure out what happens. Later today, stoppage time, 2 o'clock, facebook.com/929 The Game. Talk to y'all then. Thanks for hanging out. Much plot, y'all.
Much plot, y'all.